Everybody right now is talking about AI agents, and it can feel really overwhelming. Where do I start? What can they do? How does this thing work? And so today I want to take you through building a really simple AI agent using make.com that can write social media posts for Twitter, LinkedIn, or wherever you want, something that can even draft emails for you or schedule events on your calendar. I'm going to take you through step by step and show you my process. This isn't something that I've built before, so I want to show you how I would build this thing completely from scratch, knowing nothing about it. So let me walk you through what it is that we're going to be building today. And by the end of this video, you should have a simple AI agent up and running that you can start interacting with right now. So I laid this out for us a little bit today because I find it really helpful to kind of visualize things before you just hop in and get started. And this way you kind of like know what it is that you're building. So let me walk you through my idea for this simple AI agent today that you can start implementing. And so basically there's kind of like three main steps that you kind of need to know about. And the first one is really basic. It's the input message, right? So this is just basically, what are you telling the system to do? To start this video, we're just going to have this be a simple text-based interaction where all you do is type in what you want the agent to do. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you how you can hook this up to Telegram so that you can type into Telegram so you can access this agent anywhere from the world. After the input message is received, it's going to go to this director level AI. And this AI here basically has one job. And its job is to determine where to send the message next. So in our case, it needs to determine whether it should send it to our social media manager or our communications manager. Really basic, right? So a good example would be, we would say, hey, agent, write a social media post on whatever, right? And the director would understand that you've asked it to write a social media post, and it would route that to the social media manager. Now from here, the social media manager will understand, do we want to write a Twitter post or a LinkedIn post? And you could really fill this out with as many different examples or as many different platforms as you want. Today, we're just going to kind of build it out simply just for these two platforms. So it's either, do we want to write a Twitter post or a LinkedIn post or both? And from there, it's going to write the post for us, and then it's going to store it in an Airtable database so that we have a record of it for later. And again, this is up to you. If you wanted, you can skip this Airtable step. I think it's easier just for us to be able to review and approve the content. But really, if you wanted, you could just have this thing published straight to your social media platforms without having to store it in a database at all. Now, on the other route, here's this communications manager. And so remember, the director is going to take the input message. And what if we said, send an email to Brian, right? And basically, the director then would understand that we need to access the communications manager. So it would send that message over here. And the communications manager is then going to say, okay, do we need to send or draft an email? Or do we need to schedule a meeting? Again, it's basically just choosing these two routes for it. In this case, if we want to draft an email, it'll understand what we've asked it to draft the email about, and it'll store this in our Gmail for drafts. On the other hand, if we wanted to schedule a meeting, it'll schedule a meeting on our Google Calendar. And in our case, it'll invite Brian to this imaginary. And so again, I think it's really helpful to be able to visualize this whole flow, just kind of if we look at it from top to bottom. So let's hop into make.com and start building this thing. So here we are inside of make.com, and I'll leave a link in the description to where you can sign up for free. And you can see I haven't built out anything yet. I haven't even created any of the AI prompts. So I'm also going to show you some tips along the way of how you can create AI prompts for these different AI agents. So for the director, the social media agent, and the communications manager. And so we don't need to be creating all of this from scratch. We can actually use tools like ChatGPT to help us create the prompts for our agents. So this is really stress-free. It shouldn't be too challenging for you. So let's walk through this step by step. I'm going to show you how we can get started. And so in our case right now, I just want to kick this off really simply. I don't want to connect to Telegram yet. I just want to start this with a basic message. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to choose this tools module. And if you don't see it, you can just type in tools. Basically what I want to do is I just want to set a variable, right? And this is just going to be incoming message, right? And again, this matches here. This is our input message. We have our incoming message. So this is whatever we want the system to do. So we could come in here and basically we'd use this, say we're like reading a news article in the day. And I found this news article that Meta is betting on AI-powered humanoid robots. So Meta reportedly plans to develop software that can power robots built by other companies. I think this is really interesting. And so what I would do in this case is like, I want to treat this like a real message. And so like you would say something like, I want to write some LinkedIn posts on Meta betting on AI-powered robots. And so we could say, I want to write a LinkedIn post on, we can say Meta betting on AI-powered humanoid robots, right? And so this is the message that is going to be sent to our director. Go ahead and click save. And so from here, the next thing we do is we just need to connect this to a ChatGPT module. And we can rename this here, and we can just say input message. And I'm going to export all these blueprints for you at the end, and I'll leave a link in the description where you can download this entire flow so you can just have it, or you can walk along step by step and watch me build it while you kind of reference what it is that we're building. So here, next thing we want to do is we just want to come into OpenAI and come into show more. And what we want to do is we want to create a completion. And if you don't already have an OpenAI connection, it's really easy to set up. You just come over to platform.openai.com. If you come into the dashboard and go into API keys, you can create a new secret key. And then you would just kind of copy the new secret key, the API key that it gives you, and you would come into add here. And then you just need to paste the API key in. I already have this done, so I don't need to do this again. One other thing is make sure that you have credits in your OpenAI account. You don't need to be a Plus member to access the API, but you do need to have some credits in there. And these systems are really cheap to run. It literally costs pennies to run something like this. And so the next thing we want to do is we want to choose a model. And so this is going to be a really basic request, right? Remember, we're just basically deciding, like, are we doing something for social media, or are we doing something that involves communications with email or scheduling? And so I'm just going to use the GPT-4o mini for this because that's really all we need. And the max completion tokens 2048 is really fine. So we're just going to let this load for a second. And we're going to come in here and we're going to add a message. And we're just going to say developer and system. And I'm just going to say you are a helpful and intelligent AI agent director. Your task is to analyze an incoming message and determine whether it is best suited. Let's say whether it is considered a social media task. We could say like writing a LinkedIn or Twitter post, or a communications task. And let's just say, put these in quotes here too to keep it consistent, or a communications task, like drafting an email or scheduling, spell this right, scheduling a meeting. We'll say you must output your response in the following format. JSON format. And we can just say task type, social media, or communications. The last thing we need to do is we just need to add one more message and go make this a user message. And we can say incoming message. And just go ahead and link up this incoming message here. And in order to get this to output the JSON correctly, we just go into show advanced settings and change this response format from text to JSON object and click parse response. We'll go ahead and click save. Remember, we'll just make sure we want to save our scenario here so that we have access to this later. Saving frequently is always good. And so let's run this scenario once to see if we get the output that we're hoping for. So remember, we asked this to write a LinkedIn post on Meta betting on AI-powered humanoid robots. So now we come in here and we can see the result is task type is social media, which is great because that's exactly what we want, right? So now we know that this understands that this is a social media task, and now we can route this to either the social media director or the communications director. And again, this is social media, so we want to route this to the social media director or the social media manager. We can just rename this, and why don't we just say director? So the next thing I would do is I would just create a router. And so we can go ahead and click plus, and we can type in router. And we don't want this open router. We want to go into flow control. We come down here and we can click router. And now we have these two routes, right? And so again, if we just keep referencing this diagram, we're basically here. We just did the director, and now we have to build out the social media manager and the communications manager. So since our first request is a social media post, let's do the social media manager first. And we can just come in here and we want to create another new completion for OpenAI. And for this one, I'm going to choose GPT-4o mini again, because remember, basically this social media manager right now is only in charge of deciding whether this should be a Twitter post, a LinkedIn post, or both. And we can go through this process again, and we'll add another system prompt, and we'll say you are. And actually, in my case, what I would probably do is I would probably just clone this module by right-clicking and clicking clone, because so much of this work is already done for us. We can just go ahead and rename this, and why don't we call this social media manager? Go ahead and click OK. And we just want to go in and we want to edit this prompt a little bit. You are helpful and intelligent. And instead of AI agent director, we want to say social media agent. Your task is to analyze an incoming message and determine whether it is considered a social media task, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the part that we want to change, right? So your task is to analyze an incoming message and determine whether it is considered a, we'll just change this, LinkedIn request, like writing a LinkedIn post. And we'll just say this. We're going to change this to a Twitter request. Like writing a Twitter post, or both, writing both a Twitter and LinkedIn post. So this way now we can identify whether it's, again, just for LinkedIn, just for Twitter, or if we want both posts created. You must output your response in the following format. Task type is going to be LinkedIn, or Twitter, or both. An incoming message is actually going to be the same message that we had before. And so we can just go ahead, click save now. All the rest is the same. So we can just go ahead and click save. And so while we're here, what we should set up is we should set up our communications manager at the same time. So we can just go ahead and clone this because, again, there's so many similarities here. And we can just delete this because we don't need it, and we'll connect this here. And I'm just going to right click and go rename, and we'll name this communications manager. And let's pop in here and we'll just edit the prompt again, right? And so basically, if we go back and we reference our FigJam, so now we need to determine, are we sending or drafting an email? I think in our case, we're just going to draft emails because we don't want these to be sent out without our review, especially if this is, for a professional situation, or if this is for a client or something like that, or if we need to schedule a meeting. So we're going to come back in here and we're in the communications manager now, and you are helpful and intelligent communications agent. Your task is to analyze an incoming message and determine whether it is considered an, let's say, email request, like drafting an email, or a scheduling request, like creating a meeting or calendar invite. Same thing, task type is going to be email, or I see there's a typo here, so I'm going to go ahead and fix that. And instead of calendar, why don't we just say scheduling? Go ahead and click save. And I'm just going to come back into our social media manager, and instead of saying like Twitter or whatever, I just want to fix that to say Twitter. And we just come in here, LinkedIn or Twitter or both. Go ahead and click save. And so now we have a lot of this already set up, right? And so basically what we need to do here is we just need to add filters to these separate routes so that it's only going to the social media manager if it's a social request, and it's only going to the communications manager if it's a communications request. So basically what we're doing here is we're essentially setting up the same filter on both. And so we're going to say social ? And the condition is going to be this task type here and equal to, and I like to go case insensitive. And what do we say? Social media. Or actually, let's change this to contains case insensitive. And let's just say social, just to be safe. And we can set the same thing up here. And we can set up a filter. And we can call this communications. And the condition is going to be the same. The task type, let's go contains case insensitive. And we're going to say communications. Go ahead and click save. So let's run through this once and we'll see what we get here. So we have the same incoming message. I want to write a LinkedIn post. I'm meta betting on AI-powered humanoid robots. Here, our result, if we come in, our task type is social media. And so you can see here by this 1 and this 0, it sent this to the social media manager and not to the communications manager, which is great. That's exactly what we want. And if we come into the result here, you can see that we decided that this is a LinkedIn type request because remember, in our original message, we say, I want to write a LinkedIn post, right? And let's see what happens if we want to say, I want to write a Twitter and LinkedIn post. And if we run this again, we should get a really similar response, except in this case, when we come down here, now we can see our output here says both because we've asked it to write both a Twitter and a LinkedIn post. So this is set up exactly how we want to. Great. Let's keep going. And really all that's left to do here for the social media manager is we actually need to write the posts, right? And so what we need to do now is we need to add a separate router because we need one module to write for LinkedIn and we need a separate module to write for Twitter. So we're going to go ahead and click this and we're going back into flow control and we're going to go router. And we're going to come in here. We're going to go to OpenAI. If you don't see this, you should see it at this point, but come into OpenAI, go to show more, and we're going to create a completion. Our model, this time we're going to use ChatGPT 4.0 because now we're actually asking it to do a little bit more work. We're asking it to write a complete LinkedIn or Twitter post, which is a little bit more involved. So I want a stronger system. So we're going to go to add messages. We'll come into developer system and we're going to say, you are a helpful and intelligent Twitter copywriter. Before we get into that, there's actually one thing I want to do first that's really cool. So before we do this, one thing I actually want to do is actually 2 steps. I want to be able to extract the main topic from our incoming message. So in our case, it's going to be meta betting on AI-powered humanoid robots. But also, if we had said something like, write an email to Brian asking if he got our latest proposal, the subject would be, Brian getting our latest proposal, right? So I just want to make sure that our AI in the future has that context. And so if we're going down the social media route, the reason I want that topic is so we can actually enrich our data with a little bit of extra research. And so right now, ChatGPT doesn't have a lot to go on when it's creating our content. All it has is this little message here, which isn't telling it much. But what we can do is we can actually extract the topic. So meta betting on AI-powered humanoid robots. We could send that to Perplexity to search the internet to do more research about this for us, and then include that new information along with our prompt into ChatGPT here so it can write much stronger social media posts for us based off of a lot more complete data. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to add to our social media manager post to also extract the topic from our message. So I'm going to say, instead of your task is to, I'm just going to say you have 2 tasks. I'm going to say 1, analyze an incoming message. This is all going to be the same, right? 2, extract the main topic from the incoming message. And we can just change this format here. So task type, LinkedIn or Twitter or both. And we can just come in here, comma, quotes, and we can say topic. And we can just do this. And now we should all be set up here. And one thing we can do is we can just give this an example of what this would look like. And so we can just add one more message and we can just say user, and we can say example incoming message. And actually in this case, I'm just going to take our existing message here because I think this is a strong example. Just going to copy this, come back in here and paste this in. And I'm going to say main topic is really just going to be meta betting on AI-powered robots. And I'm just going to move this message ahead of the incoming message so we can just drag this up here above our other user message. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. And so I want to test to see how this works. And so I've already kind of copied this, but I'll just copy this again. And what I can do here is I can just right click and run this module only. So we don't have to go through the whole flow again. So if we just paste our incoming message in here, we can see how this runs. And now we can go to the result and we can see the task type is both. And this got this right. The topic is meta betting on AI-powered humanoid robots. So what we can do now is we can link this up to Perplexity to do some additional research for us on our topic. So let's just come in here and I'm going to unlink this really quick because we don't need this yet. And I'm going to add another module and I'm going to search for Perplexity and create a chat completion. And again, if you don't have a Perplexity connection set up, go ahead and do this. Again, you'll need some credits on your account. It's really, really cheap to run. There are videos or documentations about how to get your API key for this. It's really straightforward. So I'm just going to honestly assume that you can figure that out at this point. And so I always tell people that problem solving and troubleshooting is one of the most important and valuable skills you can have when it comes to anything in this AI automation, AI agent, AI agency space. So much of your time and my time, honestly, is spent troubleshooting and tackling down problems. And especially if you're working with the client, they are going to expect you to have answers for them. And it's really important that you understand how to go out there and find them. So I am super confident in you of being able to figure out how to create a Perplexity connection in order to do this research. So let's hop back into our scenario and let's link this all up. I'm just going to scoot this stuff out of the way. And we can just add a message here, and our role is just we can create a system role, and we can just say you are a helpful and intelligent social media research assistant. And we can add one more item here. We can add a user prompt, and we can say, please research this topic. We can just pipe in the topic here and go ahead and click save. And let's just run this once. And again, we can come into here and I can just copy and paste this just to make sure that our Perplexity module is working correctly. And we can paste in our topic, meta bidding on AI-powered humanoid robots, and click OK. So Perplexity is going to get to work for us, searching the web for more relevant information so we can enrich our data so that we can write stronger and more, kind of substantiated or backed up social media posts based off of actual research. So if we come down here into choices and we come into message and content, and now we can see we have all this information. Meta Platform is making a significant investment in developing AI-powered humanoid robots, et cetera, et cetera. Here's some key points. Investment in leadership is investing heavily in this. Integration and existing technology. This project aims to integrate these robots with Meta's existing AI and augmented reality technologies. So the strategic alignment, the future implications, economic impact, social and political implications. So look at how much more complete our data is and how much more information. So now we can actually write like really compelling and complete social media posts rather than something that's just based off of like a single subject line. So let's connect this router back up now that we have this, and let's get back to work creating our Twitter bot. So we already have a developer system prompt. Remember, we're using GPT-4o. You're a helpful and intelligent Twitter copywriter. Your task is to write a compelling social media post for Twitter that follows the Twitter best practices. And if you want to include information here, like about your audience, right? You can say that is geared toward an audience who is interested in my case, AI and automations, or who's interested in robots or future technology or whatever your audience is interested in. You could add this in here. And we can just add, and is based on a topic and additional research. So here's one of the ways that I was thinking that we could use ChatGPT. And we can just come into chatgpt.openai.com, and we're in a new chat here. And we can just type in, what are the Twitter best practices for 2025? And I'm actually going to search the web here because I know OpenAI sometimes has outdated data. So we can come in here. Sometimes you'll get these two responses. Sometimes you won't. And let's see. Prioritize short, impactful content. Keep these posts concise. Longer tweets and articles. And this is a little bit more than I need, right? I don't need to know about consistent posting time and engage first, post second, et cetera. Like this stuff is unnecessary. So I really want this to just be focused on like the post itself, right? So I'll just say I only need the best practices for writing Twitter posts specifically. This is better, right? So we want brevity, we want clarity, quality, relevance, 1 to 2 hashtags, incorporate trending hashtags, encourage replies, acknowledge comments. So this is great. And we don't need to use analytics in this, and we don't need to post at optimal times. That's fine. And let's probably we can remove section 2 here. So to be honest with you, I wasn't entirely happy with this output, but I think with a little more prompting, like you can get this closer. I actually already have this Twitter agent here. So I will make sure to include this in the package with all the files that you can download, including the blueprints and all the AI prompts. So I'll make sure you have access to this, but this is kind of the Twitter best practices. You can see, keep the tweets concise, use the structure, add spaces after the hook. It must be a maximum of 240 characters. So this was like a little bit more kind of like what I was looking for. And so we can just come in here, and remember, this is where you can put in your own industry. So we don't need the prompts, and we don't need this these are the system prompts up here. We've already filled that out. And really the only stuff we need here is kind of the rules and the examples that we have. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy these over. And if we come back into make.com, again, I'll make sure to include this for you. We can add a message. We can add a user message, and we can just say Twitter best practices. And we can just paste that in. And we can add one more message, and we can add another user message, and we can say tweet topic. Why don't we just say topic? And we'll pipe in the topic from here, and we'll just say additional research. We can go ahead and pipe in, come down here into choices and message and the content of the message. And so now we can save this. Now we have kind of our Twitter bot ready to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and rename this Twitter Writer. We can go ahead and click save. And so let's run this through once to see where we're at. So again, we have our input message. I want to write a Twitter and LinkedIn post on yada, yada, yada. We have the director who sends this down the social media route. The social media manager then continues to route this to either the Twitter or the LinkedIn bot, which we haven't set up yet. But Perplexity is going to do additional research for us, and it's going to send it to our Twitter writer, who's then going to write this post. Meta is investing big in AI-powered humanoid robots. Led by Mark Whitten, this project aims to transform how we interact with both digital and physical spaces. Will these robots redefine productivity in the future? AI, #robotics. Great. So this is working exactly as we want it to. Cool. So now we're here. And the next thing we need to do is we just need to set up our LinkedIn writer really similarly to how we set up the Twitter writer. So I'm going to delete this and I'm just going to clone the Twitter module here and click clone. Attach this up here. Let's rename this to LinkedIn writer. And we can come in here and we can just edit our prompt, right? And this is largely going to be the same. We have some different best practices for LinkedIn. And there's a writing framework that I like for this, which is the PAS framework or the problem, agitate, solve. Again, I will make sure that I include this along with everything else so you have access to it. But again, it just gives us kind of some prompts here, like you're an expert at LinkedIn and it's good in crafting impactful copy, et cetera, et cetera. Here's the task, gives us some information about the tone of voice, gives us kind of the framework, the PAS framework breakdown, some best practices like the length and the paragraph and bullet point structure, things not to include, and some strategies for engagement like call to action and authenticity and proofreading. So what we can do here is we can just kind of copy and paste a lot of this over into that make.com module. So we can just copy this first sentence because this is basically the system prompt here. And we can also copy and paste the purpose into that same area. And I'm just going to come down here and I'm basically going to copy and paste all of these best practices. Come down here, we can remove these Twitter best practices. And we can just rewrite this and we can say LinkedIn best practices. Right here in the PS formula and the LinkedIn best practice guidelines below, just so that it's really clear what we want it to do. And we can just come in here and we can copy and paste this this task, right? And publish a publish ready social media post. Because this is essentially the prompt that we are giving to the AI. So this is write a publish ready social media post that is engaging, informative, and encourages interaction based off of the topic and the additional research that we have. Go ahead and click save. So this is all set up. Basically, our social media AI agent is all ready to go. The last thing we need to do is just set up these filters to make sure that we're only sending it to Twitter or LinkedIn, depending on what the social media manager says. And so let's come in here and we will say Twitter ? And the condition basically is that the task type, and I just like this contains insensitive. Task type contains Twitter or the task type in our case contains both, right? Because we want to send to the Twitter writer if it also says both, because that way we're asking for both Twitter and LinkedIn. So here we're just going to do the same thing and set this up for LinkedIn. So the condition here is task type, and I'm just going to go to contains LinkedIn, or our task type here contains case insensitive, both. Go ahead and click save. And we are all ready to go. So let's run this through once more and we can basically see how our Twitter writer is working. The last thing that we want to do is we just want to send this over to Airtable so that we can sort of, check to make sure that this is all working and kind of verify the outputs. So let's just run this once really quick. Again, we're researching the topic right now, and then it should send this down both of the routes because right here we can see that the result from the social media manager is this is asking for both Twitter and a LinkedIn post. And you can see we've already written our Twitter post here. We can come into the results. And if we come into our LinkedIn post here, we can come down here and now we have this nice long Twitter post. Imagine a future where your home chores are handled by a robot. Sounds futuristic? Well, Meta is making strides toward that reality by investing in AI-powered humanoid robots. And then here's the problem. Then here's the solution, et cetera, et cetera. So this is all ready to go. And again, basically these prompts are all up to you. If there's a different style or a different way that you like writing, you can come in and you can adjust these prompts to fit your needs. I'm going to come into Airtable really quick. This is just airtable.com. I'll leave the link in the description where you can sign up totally for free. This is basically just a database like Google Sheets. You can use that as well. I'm going to come into our Create Together workspace and click Create and start from scratch. And I'm just going to say beginner AI agent. And you don't have to do this. This is just kind of for us to keep track of what we're looking for. And these are going to be really simple. I'm only going to put 2 fields in here. Or maybe I'll put a couple if we want to store our drafted emails, but I don't even think we need to do that. So I'm just going to call this Twitter post. And we'll say this is a long text. And I'm going to come down here and I will just call this LinkedIn post. And we could delete these other two fields. And you can really get as complicated with this stuff as you want. Like if you want to include an approval status before it gets published, you can do that. If you want to publish straight to social media, you can just click the plus and you can type in Twitter and you can go to create a post, link this up to your Twitter account, type in the content from the Twitter writer, click save. And literally, if you say, I want to create a post on this topic, this will just run through and this will just post to your social media for you without you having to save it. But just so we can verify everything later, I think it's kind of nice to set this up to Airtable. I personally love an approval step because I think that's really helpful, but it's your call. And I think the way that's going to be the best way to do this is there actually is one more field that I want to add here. And I'm just going to add this insert to the right. And I'm just going to call this topic because we want to make sure we have a field for the topic. And I'll do single line text and I'll just put this as the front, change primary field. That's fine. And I know that I'm going to need to update my API here. So if you come into the Builder Hub and you come into these personal access tokens, I have this working Airtable token, and I just want to make sure that I add our new base to this token here, which is the beginner AI agent. Click Save Changes. So what I'm going to do here is after the social media manager, I'm just going to add a module and I'm going to say Airtable and I'm going to create a record. Select our working Airtable connection. Come into the base. I want to make sure that we're using our beginner AI agent and table 1. And the topic here is just going to be the topic coming out of our social media manager. Go ahead. Boom. And I just want to run this once so that we have a record to work from. And you'll see why in a second. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this module only. I'll put in our topic here. Go ahead and click OK. And if we come into our Airtable, you can see we now have this record. I'll delete these. We don't need them. But you can see we have this record here, meta betting on AI-powered humanoid robots. And the reason I did that is because what I want to do is at the end here is I want to update a record rather than creating a new record for each of the Twitter and the LinkedIn writers. I want them kind of all contained on one line. And so what we can do is we can come in here, we can connect the Airtable back up to that same Airtable. And if we go into record ID now, we have the record ID from that initial created record. So we can just pipe this in dynamically. And for the Twitter post, we can come in here and grab the result from the Twitter writer and click save. And let's just duplicate this. We can clone this module and attach this here. And now if we come in, we can just delete the Twitter record because it's not coming from here. We can do the LinkedIn post and we can take the result from here. And now we are all good to go. So click save. And so if we run this through once more, I'm going to come into Airtable. I'll delete this record just so we have nothing. We're starting from fresh. We can run this once. And again, we get our input message. The director is deciding which route to route it to. The social media manager is deciding what the topic is. And if we need a Twitter, a LinkedIn post, or both. Airtable is creating that record for us. We should already have a record now, create an Airtable, and you can see the Twitter post and the LinkedIn post are popping in. So if we open this up, we can have the topic, we have our Twitter post, and we have our LinkedIn post all ready to go. And so really, this is it. We are done with Route 1, our social media manager of our beginner AI agent. So the next thing we need to do is now we need to work on the route for our communications manager. And if we come back in here, you can see basically we want to be able to draft an email or schedule a meeting. We're keeping this really simple. So we come in here, we can see our communications manager. Let's just get a quick refresher of what we had typed in here. You are a helpful and intelligent communications agent. Your task is to analyze an incoming message and determine whether it's considered an email request, like drafting an email, or a scheduling request, like creating a meeting or calendar invite. You must output your response in the following JSON format: task type, email, or scheduling. We can actually say or both. And we can update this here kind of just to match the format in the other one, because maybe there's a case where we say, we want to schedule a meeting with Brian and send him an email letting him know it's scheduled. Great, let's click save and let's save this. And so why don't we come in here now and we can change our input message. And let's say I want to draft an email to Brian asking if he's received our latest business proposal. So if we run this once, we should see this should go to the director. And now you can see this didn't come down our social media path because it recognized that this was a communications request. And so now it sent this to our communications manager and he analyzed this. And if we go into the result, we can see this is an email request, right? Because we've asked it to draft an email. So now we are on the right track. We can come in here and we want to add another router. Come into flow control and go into router. And remember, because we want to be able to either draft an email or schedule an or meeting or both. So I just added a last name in here. I want to draft an email to Brian Johnson for good measure, just to make sure that we have the right person. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to click the plus. We have our 2 routes. And I'm thinking through here that I want our communications manager to also extract the name of the person that we're trying to contact. So let's go ahead and let's adjust our prompt in here to reflect that change as well. So let's say, again, now you have 2 tasks. You have 2 tasks. 1, analyze an incoming message. This is still fine. 2, extract the full name of the person we're trying to contact. And task type, email, scheduling, or both. And we can just come in here, comma space, and we can say contact name. Go ahead and click save. So let me just run this once just to make sure that this is working properly. Communications manager has a result, and we can see the email is task type and the contact name is Brian Johnson. Great. This is working as expected. So now what do we need to do is we need to be able to search our Google contacts for this Brian Johnson person. I'm going to add a module in here. If you don't see Google contacts, you can just type in Google contacts and search contact, query search, and I'm going to do contact name Brian Johnson. Maximum number of results can be 10. Why don't we just change this to 1 and click save? And I'm just going to run this once to make sure this works. So now you can see here, this ran a search for Brian Johnson in our contacts. And if you have a contact list in Google Sheets or Airtable or whatever, you can plug this in here instead and have it search that. I just have him in my contacts. I made this earlier, Brian Johnson. And if you come down here into email addresses, you can see I just made this b.johnson@fakecompany.com. So we have access to a fake email for drafting purposes and scheduling purposes. So this is working as expected. Great. So the next thing we want to do is we actually want to draft an email to Brian. So we can come in here, we can create a new completion using OpenAI. Come into model, GPT-4o, add a message, role, we'll do developer system message. You are a helpful and intelligent email assistant. And I think that's all we need here. We can just go ask message, add message, go to user, and we can say, your task is to draft an email given the context provided. And we can say, use a Spartan, casual, but professional tone. And always include an email signature of I'll say dash my name. Come in here, we'll say context, and we'll just come back here and we can just grab the original incoming message and click save. And I want to see if this works. So I'm going to come in here and I just want to run this once to make sure that we're not drafting a message to Brian talking about drafting an email, if that makes sense. So I'm going to run this module only. Going to go ahead and click OK, and let's see how smart ChatGPT is. Result. Subject, follow up on our latest business proposal. Hi, Brian. I hope this message finds you well. I just wanted to check in and see if you have received our latest business proposal. Please let me know if there's any further information you need. Looking forward to your feedback. Best, Duncan. So I actually don't even need to include this dash here because somehow it knows that it's coming from me. I think I can remove that dash here. Remove this dash. And we can include the output format. So you must output your message in the following format. And let's add JSON here. Curly brackets, quote, and we will say subject, the subject line of the email. And we're going to call this one body, the main body copy. Go ahead and click save. And I'm just going to go ahead and let's run this once more. Oh, right. So remember, you have to go into the advanced settings and you have to turn this to a JSON output. And we have to go ahead. Where are you? Come down here, go to the response format. We want to go to JSON object, parse response, click yes, click save. Now let's run this once more with our incoming message. Go ahead, it's going to draft a message. We can come into result, and now we can see the subject is follow up on business proposal. And now we have our message. This is great. We can just call this email writer. And the last thing we need to do is we just need to link this up to our Gmail account. So just come in here, type Gmail, and we can create a draft. I've already linked this up to my Gmail account. And our recipient here now, folder here, I'm just going to say this to our drafts folder, is the first thing that it asks you for. This is a must-have. Come in here, click drafts, and add a recipient. And this is why we searched for him earlier, because now we can come in to this Google Contacts, and we can come in and find the email somewhere in here, email addresses. And pipe this in, and the subject now we can see we're grabbing the subject from our email writer, and the content, we're grabbing the content from the body. If you want to get fancy and add attachments or include any HTML formatting or font choices or things like that, you can do that, but I want to keep this really simple today. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. And now if I run this once, go ahead, we're getting the input message. The director is sending it to the communications manager, who's getting our Google contact, writing an email, and storing this in our Gmail drafts. And so now if I come into my drafts folder, you can see here, I have the draft follow up on our business proposal to Brian Johnson with our message here. And again, if we want to adjust the formatting inside of ChatGPT, we can go ahead and do that, but I'm just keeping it simple for today's demonstration. So this is great. This is working exactly how I was expected. And so the last thing we need to do is we need to set this up to schedule a meeting for us with Brian. Great. So there's a couple things we need to do here. So let's change our input message, and we can say, I want to schedule, let's just say schedule a meeting with Brian Johnson for Friday at 2 p.m. to talk about our business proposal. So what we can do now is we can create another route, and we can go ahead, and we're still going to need ChatGPT for some of this. And before I connect this, what I'm going to do just to show you is I'm going to add the Google Calendar module here. If you don't see it, you can just type in Google Calendar, and I want to create an event. So the reason I'm doing this is, again, you need to connect your Google account. I want to show you the fields that we're going to need. So we need a calendar ID, and I'll just use my main calendar, the name of the event, the start date, and in our case, I want a duration, right? And so let's go ahead and actually, let's update this, schedule a 1-hour meeting, so that it's really clear here. And so basically, we need to use ChatGPT to extract this information from our message. So we can come in here, we're going to create completion, we're going to go into model GPT 4.0, and I'm just going to come in here, and I'm going to add a system message, helpful and intelligent scheduling assistant. Go ahead and add a user message, and let's say your task is to take an incoming message. I want to say analyze an incoming message and extract the following information: the subject of the meeting, the duration of the meeting, the date of the meeting. We'll go ahead and say you must output your data in the following JSON format. And we'll say quotes, subject of the meeting, duration of the meeting. I'm going to see if that needs to be in hours or minutes, and we'll say date, the date the meeting will take place. Save this, and when we come in here and let's see the duration, you can either enter end date or duration. Format is hour, minute. So I think that's going to be fine if we just say 1 hour. And we can just say, why don't we just copy this? And so let's say if we go date, duration of the meeting, and we can just say in HHMM format. So one other thing I want to do is I want to give this a new name. So let's call this Meeting Assistant. And one thing I want to do is I need to give it the current date so it understands when to schedule the meeting, right? It needs to be based off of today. So it needs to be able to pick that up. So let's just add a module here. And we can go to set variable module. And we can just say current date. And basically, if we come in here and it's in one of these functions up here, if we go into calendar and we can just do now, and click save. And so if we run this module now, you can see we have the current date, February 15th at this time. And so now we have this context to give to the scheduler so that it bases the meeting schedule off of our current day because it needs to know what today is in order to schedule the next meeting. So now we can come in here and we can say the date the meeting will take place relative to the current date. And if we come down here and add a message now, we can say role is user, and we can say incoming message, and we can go ahead and pipe in our incoming message, and we can also say current date, and now we can pipe in the current date from before. We can go ahead and click save. Save anyway, that's fine. Let's rename this. Let's just say set date. Let's unlink this for now, because we'll set that up in a second. So let's run this once and see what we get. The director is sending this to the communications manager. We're getting the contact. Right, and I sent it down both paths because I don't currently have a filter set up. So let's go ahead and let's adjust our communications manager to also account for that. We've already set this up to already account for that. Task type is scheduling. So why don't we just go ahead and we'll set these filters up. I just want to see what the meeting assistant came out with. Right. I didn't parse the JSON. I keep encountering this issue. Again, troubleshooting, knowing where the errors occur. You can see here we have this response that just says result JSON, this, like not helpful for us. And so we want to make sure that we can actually go in here and go into show advanced settings. So that way we can change the output here to the proper output. Come in here, response text, we'll go to JSON and we want to parse this response and click save. So let's just set up these filters really quick. And this task will be email, ? And the condition is going to be the task type is contains, case insensitive, email, or the task type contains case insensitive, both. Go ahead and click save. And you can't copy and paste filters. I don't know why, but that's okay. And we'll say schedule or scheduling. And we'll just set this up the same way, right? Task type contains scheduling, or this task type contains both. Save and save. So now we can run this through. The director is getting our message, sending us to the communications manager. Now you can see we've skipped the email route. We skipped the email route. We've come down here. We've grabbed the current date. And now we have our results here. We have the subject is the business proposal. The duration is 1 hour, and the date will be the 21st at 2025. Actually, I wonder did I actually even give this a time? I did. I said for Friday at 2 p.m. So it understands that we're now talking about the next Friday, which is great, which is going to be the 21st. So this is exactly what we want. So now we can link up our Google Calendar and we can come into event name. And I'm just going to delete this and I'm going to connect this again so it can actually read the previous module. Let's create an event. Calendar ID is going to be my calendar. The event name now is just going to be the subject here. The start date is going to be here. And the duration should be this. I'm going to run this once and see if this works. Cool. So I ran this once and it wasn't actually scheduled at the right time. And I had to go in and I had to figure out why. So there were a couple things, two main things that I needed to add personally to this kind of meeting assistant prompt. And they were pretty simple. One is I needed to make sure in the system prompt that I said, for me, all meetings should be scheduled in PST because I'm on the West Coast, California. So I want to make sure that when I say schedule a meeting for 2 p.m., it's scheduling it for 2 p.m. Pacific time, not like New York time or London time or whatever. The other thing I needed to do is for the date, this needs to be the date and start time the meeting will take place relative to the current date. So before, all I had was the date included and not the start time. And so when it was scheduling this meeting, it was just kind of like putting it randomly on the calendar because I didn't actually include the time. So now when I have the result, we can see we have this format that Make.com understands and the calendar understands as well. And so if I go ahead and I run this once through now, the director is getting the message. It's sending it to the communications manager. We're getting our contact from the content field. We're getting the current date. The meeting assistant is kind of creating all those, extracting all that data for us about the start time and the subject and the duration of the meeting. and it's adding this to Google Calendar. So now you can see, we come into my Google Calendar here. I have this business proposal scheduled for 2 p.m. on Friday, exactly like we asked. So one of the cool things we can do is that we want to let Brian know that we're scheduling this meeting with him. So if we come in here and we can just click plus, and what we want to do is we want to set variable, and variable name is going to be meeting link. And let's just do this camel case like we've been doing. And the value here is we're going to just grab this HTML link, which is here. Go ahead and click save. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to swap the order of these first two routes so that if we're scheduling a meeting, we can set the meeting date and time and grab the link first to make sure that we have access to all of this. And actually what I want to do is I'm going to want to set multiple variables just so we can include that information in the meeting. So let's go to set multiple variables instead, and we can add a variable name here. We can say meeting link. And we want the variable to be the link here. We can add an item. We can say start date, and we can just add the start date in here and go ahead and click save. I'm just going to rename this, and we'll set meeting date plus link. So what we can do now is we can actually just go ahead and we can right click on the router and we can order the routes, and we can just switch the order of these. And if we align these, you can see that this is switched now. And basically we have this up here. So basically what this variable allows us to do is it allows us to extract the data from that kind of in the rest of the flow. Okay, so in order to connect these two fields up at the end here, I added a set multiple variables module, and I just named this meeting link. And we came in here and I grabbed the HTML link for the meeting, and the start date, I just grabbed the start date, right? And then in order to pull that into a new route, you actually need to add the get multiple variables module. And you can come in here and you can just search for this. If you kind of right click and do add module, you can do get multiple variables. It's this module right here. So basically this allows you to pass information from one route to another. And basically the only thing is here, you need to make sure that the variable names are copied exactly as they are in the module before. So remember this camel case that we're using. So make sure that's copied exactly before. So the reason I did this is, say we want to schedule a meeting with Brian. I want to schedule the meeting with him, and I also want to draft an email letting him know that the meeting is scheduled. And so I was just doing this just to test, and I have this meeting here, and it says Brian has scheduled a 1-hour meeting, et cetera, but this is ugly. I want to use a better format for this, and so I want to see if we can get ChatGPT to actually write this in better HTML format. So let's come into the email writer and let's just change the prompt a little bit to instruct it to output this in the HTML and then give it an example. And so what I did here is I actually just went into ChatGPT and I said, rewrite this in HTML for an email with better line breaks. Also, I want to embed the meeting link in the text so that way we don't have that long URL in the text. And so I just copied and pasted that output from ChatGPT in make.com. And this is the output that it gave me for HTML formatting. So let's see if this works. By using this as an example. Let's just add a message here, and let's just say the body should be written in HTML format using appropriate line breaks and embedded meeting links. And let's just include this example here. Go ahead and click save. So I went ahead and I just updated this input message here, and it basically is the same. It just says, schedule 1-hour meeting with Brian Johnson for Friday at 2 p.m. to talk about our business proposal and draft an email to him, letting him know. So basically what we should see here is once we run this, this should come to the communications manager up here. And you can see instead of now just saying email or scheduling, this actually says both. So what it's going to do, it's going to run down this first route, it's going to schedule the meeting for us, and then it's going to draft an email to him, letting him know that we scheduled that meeting. So if we come into our calendar here, you can see I scheduled a whole bunch of meetings to talk with fake Brian here, which is great. We know this is working. And then if I come into my drafts here, we should see now I have a really nicely formatted meeting to Brian. Hi, Brian. I've scheduled a 1-hour meeting to discuss our business proposal for this Friday, February 21st, 2025 at 11 a.m. PST. So really, we want this to be 2 p.m. PST, but we can go ahead and correct that. You can join the meeting here. And now I have this embedded link for Brian to join the meeting. This is formatted a lot more nicely for us. So the last thing we got to do is I got to show you how to connect this up to Telegram so that you can access this system from anywhere. So if we come into Telegram here, there are basically two bots that we need access to, the bot father and this raw data bot. So let's go ahead and we'll open up the bot father. And you can see here, this kind of gives you a list of everything that you need. All you have to do is type in /start. And so basically what we want to do is we want to create a new bot. And you can see this up here, /new bot. We can actually just click on this here. Okay, and so what do we want to call the new bot? So we want to change the name, create a name for this. And why don't we just call this beginner agent bot. I know that we have to have the name bot at the end, and you can say, now let's choose a username for your bot. It must end in bot. And let's just go with the same thing. Beginner agent bot. Congratulations on your new bot. You'll find it here. Go ahead, and this is the API token here. So let's go ahead, and we want to make sure we copy this and keep this secure. So now what we can do is we can come back in to make.com, and we can just right click here, and we can add a module. And we can go in here and we can go to Telegram. So what we want to do here is we just want to scroll down and we want to watch updates. And we can create a webhook here. And we can just call this Telegram bot. And we can create a connection. I'm going to call this the same thing. And just paste in your API token here and click save. And now we have a connection all set up. Let this load for a second. We're all connected. Go ahead, click save. We've created a webhook. Click save one more time. This is all good to go. So what I want to do here is I actually want to make the Telegram bot the start of our scenario. So I'm just going to move the stopwatch over here. So now this is actually actively watching for new messages coming in. Go ahead and click save. So I'm just going to go ahead, and if I click run once, you can see this is circulating around waiting for new messages to come in. So if I come into Telegram and I say, hey, what's up to our bot? So now you can see we come back into make.com. We open this up. We come into message here, and you can see we have the text that says, hey, what's up? This is perfect. So now all we need to do to link this to the rest of the scenario is we can actually just link up our input message here. And instead of the variable value saying schedule 1 hour meeting with Brian Johnson, et cetera, I'm just going to copy this so we have it for good measure. We can actually delete all this. And what we want to do now is we just want to pipe in the text here. Right. So now we've already set this variable, but this will be dynamic every single time. It doesn't change the rest of the flow because everything is linked up here. This is great. The last thing we need to do is we need to be able to make sure that this can respond back to us. And what I want to do here is I'm just going to leave a little note for ourselves. I'm just going to right click this here, and I just want to add a note for ourselves here so that we can come back to this a little bit later, and just go ahead and click OK. You can see here now we have a little note. This is really handy. So the last thing we need to do is we need to be able to send a message back to ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and add one more route to this router. First thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to add a simple ChatGPT module. I'm going to go ahead and create a completion. We're just going to basically have this summarize what we did today based off of the input message. So I'm just going to come down here, and we can use O4 Mini just because this should be a really simple task. We'll just create a developer system prompt. You're a helpful and intelligent summarizer assistant. Your task is to take an incoming message and, assuming we've accomplished all the tasks, create a summary of what was accomplished. Why don't we say create a brief summary of what was accomplished? And we're going to go here, user prompt, and we will just add incoming message. And we can just go ahead and click save. And we'll just name this summarizer. So remember, we have this. Let's just test this out to see how this works. Run this module only, paste this in. 1 hour meeting has been successfully scheduled with Brian Johnson for Friday at 2 p.m. to discuss the business proposal. An email has also been drafted to notify him of the meeting. That's great. So now what we can do is we can just have the summarizer bot ping us on Telegram to let us know that it's done everything we've asked it to. So come in here and add a module. We have the Telegram bot here. We want to send a text message or reply. And now we need the chat ID. And so if we pop back into Telegram over here, this is where I said that we need this raw data bot. And if you haven't had this, go ahead and click start. And we said /start here. And all you need here is to grab your chat ID and come back into make.com and paste your chat ID. And for the text now, we just want to grab the result of the summarizer bot. And we don't need to do anything else. And so go ahead and click save. So now, if we line everything up, What we can do is I'm just going to copy this note here that says everything we want it to do. I'm going to just come into my calendar here, clean this up a little bit. Going to delete all my email drafts. And what we can do is we can click run once, and you can see this is now waiting for new data. If we come into Telegram, we can paste in our message, schedule a 1-hour meeting with Brian Johnson, go ahead and send this off. Now, if we come back into make.com, you can see this is sending this down this route to our communications manager first. It's creating the meeting. It's sending the email to Brian, letting him know, or it's drafting the email to Brian, letting him know that we scheduled a meeting for him. It's now summarizing this. It's skipping the social media route because we didn't ask for that. It's summarizing everything that we did today. And if we come back into Telegram, you can see summary. A 1-hour meeting has been scheduled with Brian Johnson for Friday at 2 p.m. An email has also been drafted for him. And so if we come into our calendar now, you can see we have the business proposal scheduled at 2 p.m. We come into our drafts here. We have a new draft, meeting invitation for Brian Johnson. I scheduled a 1-hour meeting, et cetera, et cetera. Join this meeting here. I did notice that there was one thing missing in our Google Calendar event, which is kind of important, which is we didn't actually send this to Brian. And so the way to do that is you come into advanced settings down here, scroll all the way down, and just the attendees, we want to make sure that we add the name. You can come down here all the way into the communications manager and grab the contact name. And so we just want to grab the email down here and email addresses under this value here. And so now what we can do is we can actually send this to Brian along with the email for him, and just go ahead and click save. And now we have this entire AI agent all ready to go, linked up to Telegram. You can access this from your phone. You can access this from your desktop, wherever you are. That's it. Congratulations. You've just built your first AI agent using make.com. If you want to learn more about AI and automations in make.com, I have this playlist here where I show you exactly how to automate an entire social media content system. I'll see you over there.